And now that we know the basics of converting from one unit to another, we can tackle metric conversions, going from a metric unit to a different metric unit. First thing that you're going to need to know is you're going to need to be familiar with your different metric prefixes. There are a large number of metric prefixes, but I've chosen just a few here that come often in the sciences. And most of the ones towards the middle are the ones that are more commonly used, probably about from micro or milli down to kilo, mega, somewhere in that range, depending on the subject. When you get into light chemistry and wavelengths, you actually begin to use some of those extreme prefixes. But in general, what you need to know here is that there are prefixes such as centa, and then abbreviations for those prefixes such as C, and those tell you what fraction or multiple of that unit you're dealing with. So if I have a centa something, then I have 10 to the negative 2 or 0.01 or 100th of that thing. So if I have a centimeter, that means, it says meter, I'm not sure what that is. A centimeter is 100th of a meter. That means if I took a meter and cut it into 100 pieces, each one would be a centimeter. Similarly, if I have a picometer or even picoliter, then that would be 1/trillionth or 10 to the negative 12th of a liter. And those are fractional, those are the small ones, but you also have large ones. You have a kilo. If you have a kilogram, and it doesn't matter, you can put these prefixes in front of any SI unit. Kilogram, that would be, now kilo is 10 to the positive third, it's not a thousandth, it's a thousand. A kilogram is 1,000 grams. And so it is very helpful to memorize these if you're going to be asked to memorize them. I will let you know that in class. I'm not going to announce it on a video because I hope to reuse these through the years, and I'm not sure what my policy will be over the years. So for now, learn them if it never hurts to know them. The other thing to be aware of is the way that we abbreviate these things. When you see km, that means kilometer. When you see capital M, that's megameter. Or if you saw capital ML, that would be megaliter. And so you got to become familiar with not only what the prefix is, but also how the prefix is shortened, how it's abbreviated. A couple of things to point out, though. We have this couple of cases where things are capitalized versus not capitalized, and you got to pay really close attention because lowercase d is deci, it's a tenth. I don't know what I just said if I said C or D, but lowercase d is deci, and capital D is deca, and it's 10, and they're not the same thing, so they're very close. So if you see a decaliter, that's 10 liters, whereas if you see a lowercase d deciliter, that is a tenth of a liter. Similarly, you have capital M for mega, lowercase m for milli. The other thing I should probably point out is the micro prefix. That is the Greek letter mu. You can play that word in Words with Friends. It's a Greek letter, mu. You can see right there what it looks like. If you try to draw it, it's kind of like a U with a beard on the front of it, or something like a turkey. Has a turkey neck or something. And it's pronounced micro, though. So if you ever see that, if you saw like that would be pronounced microgram. Is how you would say that. And so this chart then lists the prefix, the shortened prefix, the number the prefix means as a power of 10, and then the number the prefix means written out in decimal form, and then the number the prefix means just written out as a word. So this 3 columns, these are all the same information. It's not like several things to memorize there. Those are all the same thing. I would recommend simply just knowing these, because when you use your calculator, it's going to be simplest to plug them in that way. So how are we going to use this? We're going to answer questions like how many liters are in 4,800 milliliters. And so, just like before, we're going to set up a dimensional analysis chart. We're going to start with the thing we have, 4,800 milliliters. I'm going to make a little chart, and we can see that we're going to have to put milliliter on the bottom so that it can cancel out with milliliter, and we're going to put liter on the top because that's what we want. And so we need a conversion factor here. We need numbers to put in here. But how are we going to do that? Well, how do you set up your conversion factor for metric? This can be very confusing for some people, so let's make sure that we get that straight. If we go back to our chart, if we look at milli is what we're looking at. Milli is 10 to the negative third. And so this is where some people get a little confused. You could say 1 milliliter is 10 to the negative third liters, or you can say 10 to the negative third milliliters is 1 liter. And one of those is right and one of them is wrong. Now, it's also true that there are 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter. However, if we go back here, when you memorize the powers of 10, you'll notice that milli doesn't mean 1,000, it means 1,000th. So it can be a little tricky on here whether, you know, what does 1,000 mean? 1,000 is not on that chart anywhere for milli. So if you're going to use that, you're going to have to really understand what you're doing, which I'm guessing most of you don't come in knowing what you're doing with this, so I would recommend staying away from that. And I would go strictly off of what the chart said, which is that milli meant 10 to the negative third. So we need to express this milli conversion factor in some form of 10 to the negative third. So how do we do it? Well, it's one of these 2 ways. It's either this way or it's this way. One of these is right, one of them is wrong. And it's real simple to know which of them is right and which of them is wrong. There's a couple of ways to think about it. First of all, what does milli mean? Milli means 10 to the negative third. So here we have essentially the statement 1 milli is 10 to the negative third. 1 10 to the negative third liters equals 10 to the negative third liters. Is that a true statement? Well, it sounds true. 1 times 10 to the negative third liters, is that equal to 10 to the negative third liters? Well, it sure seems like it's equal. So that sounds right. We like it. Let's go over here and check this one. 10 to the negative third, what does milli mean? 10 to the negative third liters equals 1 liter. So this is saying 10 to the negative third, or 1,000th of 1,000th, 1,000th of 1,000th of a liter equals 1 liter. And that is just clearly not true. 1,000th of 1,000th of a liter is not a liter. So here we have our power of 10 and our metric prefix together, and that just doesn't work. That's redundant. You don't want that. So here we have the prefix, the m, the milli, on one side of the equal sign, and the power of 10 on the other side, and that's how we want it, because they mean the same thing. Because we have milliliter to negative third liter. These are equal statements, so that is how you want to do it. Now, if you're not sure how to remember that, there's a really simple way to do it. Here, this liter thing is called the base unit. That's kind of the SI base unit for volume. It's the liter. Whereas this is not the base unit. This is they've done something to this. They put a prefix on it. This is a prefixed unit. because it has liter, but it has a milli on the liter, so they've done something to it. So here we have a base unit L, and here we have a prefix unit ml. And so this guy has a prefix on it, milli. And it's incredibly simple if you can always just remember this. If you are setting up a conversion factor, it's going to say blank milliliter equals blank liter. And you have to figure out which one gets what power. We know that a 1 goes in one of the blanks, and that the 10 to the negative third goes in the other blank. And if you're not sure which, you can just do it this way. Remember that the base unit always gets the power of 10. The 10 to the whatever always goes with the base unit. So in this case, 10 to the negative third. Similarly, the 1 always goes with the prefix. 1 goes with the prefix. The 1 goes with the prefixed unit. The 1 goes with the prefix. The 1 goes with the prefix. Start doing some sort of a cha-cha marimba or something. I don't know. So the 1 goes with the prefix. The 1 goes with the prefix. So here we go. Now we're back all the way to where we started, 4,800 milliliters. Now we want to put the, let's see, we got to put milli means 10 to the negative third, and we need to have 10 to the negative third one place, and we need to have 1 in the other place. And the 1 goes with the prefix. The prefix is here. The 1 goes here. That means 10 to the negative third goes up here. And now we have to type this into our calculator. If we're clever, we know that that just means divide by 1,000 or multiply by 1,000th, and that's fine. But even if we're clever, we still may have trouble doing this if we have like 10 to the negative 15th and 10 to the 6th and all those kinds of things. If you put this into your calculator, here's how you should put this into your calculator. And do put it into your calculator unless you are really good with math. We're going to hit 4,800, and then we're going to hit times. And by the way, our milliliters cancels. We will be left with liters here. And this is a real simple example. You can probably do this one in your head, but a lot of the later ones you probably can't. So please follow along. You want to hit 10 to the negative third here. What a lot of people will do is they will hit times 10, and then they will hit their EXP button, their EE button, and that's wrong, because that EXP button, that EE button, that scientific notation button will put a 10 in there. So that's like saying 10 times 10 to the negative third. We don't want to do that. We don't want that. We just want regular 10 to the negative third. So anytime you see just a power of 10, do this. Hit 1, and then utilize your scientific notation button. 1 EE negative 3. Do that every time. So anytime you have to put a power of 10 in, don't hit 10 to the x, don't do any of that stuff. Just hit 1, your scientific notation button, and then your exponent. And when you do that, you'll see that the answer is 4.8 milliliters, and that is not only the right answer, but it's expressed with the correct number of significant digits, because we had 2 to begin with, and we have 2 to end with. Except I wrote milliliters. That's silly. We were finding liters, not milliliters. There we go. 4.8 liters is the answer, and that is all for that one.